from the, but that's all right. We can work ourselves around all of those. And I'll need a ladder now to reach the clock to change the battery. So hopefully that only comes twice a year. So now that we have all that nonsense out of the way, is your down yet? And that's okay. Kona 500 is only 4 weeks away. Okay. All right. Now, what first Joseph was in Pharaoh had. He had them a couple of times, so we talked about that he woke up with what was, a difficult dream, or another way of interpreting a difficult dream is a nightmare, and then he goes back to sleep and and so rather than the interpretation is, let's let God first. 5 to 36, and Nathan's always good to start. So.
Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, "The dreams of Pharaoh are one. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dreams are one. The 7 lean and ugly cows that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 empty ears blighted by the east wind are also 7 years of famine. It is as I told Pharaoh. God has shown to Pharaoh what he is about to do. There will come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt, but after them there will arise 7 years of famine, and all the plenty will be forgotten in the land of Egypt. The famine will consume the land, and the plenty will be unknown in the land by reason of the famine that will follow, for it will be very severe. And the doubling of Pharaoh's dream means that the thing is fixed by God, and God will shortly bring it about. Now, therefore, let Pharaoh select a discerning and wise man and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh proceed to appoint overseers over the land and take 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt during the 7 plentiful years. And let them gather all the food of these good years that are coming, and store up grain under the authority of Pharaoh for food in the cities, and let them keep it. That food shall be a reserve for the land against the 7 years of famine that are to occur in the land of Egypt, so that the land may not perish through the famine."
Okay, so this is really interesting now, because here we see what the dream is, and that is that there's going to be 7 really good years, very plentiful and rich years for the, where the nation will become very strong, and then it's going to go through some very, very lean times, and in this case, it's going to be due to a famine. And the 2 times are exactly the same, and they're giving a warning that it's going to happen. Is God doing this to punish Egypt? Why would he do the 7 years of famine? Is it to punish Egypt? No, I agree. Yeah. No, and why not?
Well, because he's already given them extra food.
Be- Right, because he's now going to give them in enough of abundance he's going to give them enough in abundance so that they're going to be able to manage those 7 years. And so they are going to find that they will have, it'll be noticeable. They're still going to have to, as we would use the term, tighten our belts a little bit, that type of thing. But it's not going to be the devastation that it would be as if you had that long of a time of a famine. So, why does God do this?
Well, to get the people of Israel to.
Yes, this is all part of the plan to get the people of Egypt where he needs them to be. And that is, they need to be in the land of Egypt, where he will eventually rescue them from. And all of this is pointing us toward the Messiah. Every bit of it is a picture of, or a pointing typology of the rescue that is ours in Christ Jesus. So, and like Nathan said earlier, the Lord gives them this plan of how to manage it. He doesn't. Notice that he doesn't even leave it in the hands of Pharaoh to come up with his own plan. Now, does that mean Pharaoh's not capable of thinking one up? It doesn't necessarily mean that. It could mean that that there will be anxiety in the midst of this, as to what would be the right decisions to make. Is it the Lord that he spoke to Joseph and said to Joseph, say this to Pharaoh? Or is it that the Lord uses the good wisdom of Joseph to come up with that plan? We don't really have an answer to it, but it sure seems like Joseph is the one. Notice it doesn't say, and God tells you to do this. Joseph just says, okay, this is what you need to do now. And he begins to direct them. The importance of that is going to come later, in that we are now going to see Joseph being more than just a dream interpreter. Because Joseph is the one that is going to have set them on the right path for plenty and for security and for stewardship and generosity to the rest of the world around them. Joseph is going to be placed in a position of high authority, which is also going to be a significant piece of how God is going to bless Joseph and how he's going to assure that Joseph and his line, through the line of his father, is going to carry on to the fulfillment of the next generation to the Messiah. So that is what we are seeing here in this section. Okay? So, we'll need someone to read from 37 to 45.
Stephen breaks things.
Guy's dangerous.
Right. This proposal pleased Pharaoh and all his servants. And Pharaoh said to his servants, "Can we find a man like this in whom is the Spirit of God?" Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has shown you all this, There is none so discerning and wise as you are. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall order themselves as you command. Only as regards the throne will I be greater than you. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, See, I have set you over the land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh took his signet ring from his hand and put it on Joseph's hand, and clothed him in garments of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him ride in his second chariot. And they called out before him, Bow the knee. Thus he set him over all the land of Egypt. Moreover, Pharaoh said to Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without your consent no one shall lift up a hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zephanath-Paneah, and he gave him a marriage to Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. So Joseph went out over the land of Egypt.
Okay. So here we see something very interesting, and that is almost very much a parallel to what we saw with Joseph and Potiphar, Joseph and the prison keeper, and now with the Pharaoh, and that is Joseph has been entrusted as having all the power of whatever area he has been entrusted to the point where the only master over him would be one who says, I have to worry for nothing because Joseph is my right-hand guy. He doesn't have to, he has to, it is of no concern to him, and whatever Joseph says, the people will do because I, Pharaoh, have said so. And we see that Joseph has been placed now in not just in a prominent role, but he's also been given all of the status of that role. You see that they have the ring and the chariot, and the Pharaoh's even selected one of the women of his kingdom, and of his courtyard, to be a wife for Joseph. And Joseph is now the second in command to all of Egypt, which means when you look at this, he is ruler over Potiphar, ruler over the jailmaster. He is those that whom he has truly worked his way up the ladder to the point where he is the leader over those who were his leader before. I mean, that is now, would that create some jealousy possibly? I could see that, certainly. I could see some of that. I don't know if that's going to show itself here, but we certainly would know that if it was in our workplace, if the person that worked under you, Claudia, for all those years, all of a sudden was your boss, and your boss's boss, you would probably go, well, this just isn't right. That would be the natural progression, or if the head of your company said, here, this is my son, he's going to train under you, and then eventually he's going to be your boss. You're immediately going to have a little bit of a tension with that person. That could happen. Those kind of things happen in the working world all the time. Well, we see some of that going on, could potentially go on here. Okay. So now if we want to go from verse 46 to verse 52, does anybody want to read that? Okay. 46.
Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from Pharaoh's presence and traveled throughout Egypt. During the 7 years of abundance, the land produced plentifully. Joseph collected all the food produced in those 7 years of abundance in Egypt and stored it in the cities. In each city he put the food grown in the fields surrounding it. Joseph stored up huge quantities of grain, like the sand of the sea. It was so much that he stopped keeping records because it was beyond measure. Before the years of famine came, 2 sons were born to Joseph by Asenath, daughter of Potiphera, priest of On. Joseph named his firstborn Manasseh and said, "It is because God has made me forget all my trouble and all my father's household." The second son he named Ephraim and said, "It is because God had made me fruitful in the land of my suffering."
Okay. So now we see that they have we're going through those 7 years, it produced great amounts of grain, and to where the storage buildings weren't even big enough, to where there was so much he didn't even keep record of it. So the Lord really blesses not just Joseph, but all of Egypt. We see Joseph has 2 children born to him, Manasseh and Ephraim. We'll see them later on as the narration goes. But you think about it now, this is Joseph's words. Let's just put this into a practical application for us as we saw as we see Joseph's wisdom, which is really the wisdom of God proclaimed by him. That there are going to be years of plenty, but that there are also going to be years of leanness. And what are we supposed to be? What would be a wise thing for us to do? It is during those years of plenty that we don't burn up everything we have. That it takes discipline to do it, of course, but that we should be putting things away for lean times. I remember back in the financial services industry days when I was in there, we used to talk to people about building slush funds, and that so that you have some immediate cash should something significant break in your house. You lose a refrigerator, or a transmission breaks in your car, or whatever the case may be, that you have this slush fund that you have easy money access to, but then you would also have like longer term monies that we would put away for whether it be for retirement or whatever the case may be. So through 401ks or pensions or 403s or whatever the case may be, we do that during the healthier times, so that when we hit leaner times, that we aren't left destitute. And sadly, in our world, we have become, over these many years, have become people that seek instant gratification. And of course, we're talking in global terms, wide berth terms here. We want instant gratification. It's why, it is... it's why our computers are faster and faster and faster, and why we get frustrated when our phone doesn't load as fast as it should, or whatever the case may be. Well, the same thing happens when it comes to the dollars that we have during the good times, we immediately say, boy, we would really like this and this and this, and we will either purchase and use up all of our dollars, or we might even extend past that and into some very sometimes difficult to manage notes or loans. And then what happens? A lean time hits. My company doesn't give out the bonuses it used to give out. When you hear that term, I was counting on that bonus, right? We'll hear terms like that. Or the raises aren't as plentiful because the company is not. Or the company has, even worse, the company cuts back on its employees, and I might be losing jobs or whatever the case may be. And then there is nothing there for us to fall back on. So we can even use some of this, some of Joseph's wisdom in how we manage the rich and the lean times in all of our lives, understanding that all of us face both the plentiful and the not so plentiful. It just happens. And I think each one of you probably can go back throughout your life, and you can even point to those sections of time when that might have been. And so here we see all of we see them preparing not only for what will be a very, very, very lean time, but they are actually going to be in so much abundance that they are going to be able to help their neighbor to survive. All right? So now we come to 53 to the end of the chapter. Anybody want to read 53 to the end of the chapter?
The 7 years of abundance in Egypt came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began, just as Joseph had said. There was famine in all the other lands, but in the whole land of Egypt there was food. When all Egypt began to feel the famine, the people cried to Pharaoh for food. Then Pharaoh told all the Egyptians, "Go to Joseph and do what he tells you." When the famine had spread over the whole country, Joseph opened the storehouses and sold grain to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe throughout Egypt. And all the countries came to Egypt to buy grain from Joseph, because the famine was severe in all the world.
Okay. So interesting here. Pharaoh was told of the lean years that were to come. Was the rest of Egypt made known of that? We don't know. If they were made aware of it, they didn't do anything to store for themselves, and we certainly know that the rest of the world wasn't aware that famine was coming, and so they certainly didn't store up enough. Now, maybe that's not saying that they weren't good stewards of what of their resources. They just may not have generated enough resource to be able to handle 7 full years. But what happens is when the cry is out around Egypt and around the world, what do? Here Egypt is sitting pretty strong, and so note what Pharaoh says. He says to them, "Go to Joseph, and what he says to do, you do." Do those words sound familiar at all?
That's what Mary said to Jesus.
Huh?
That's what Mary said to Jesus in the wedding.
Right. Well, that's what Mary said to the servants in the wedding about Jesus. Absolutely. Absolutely. Do what he tells you. Go to Jesus, and whatever he tells you to do, you do it. Again, these are all pointing to, these are little typology things that are pointing to the Christ and so what happens? We in this case we see those that are without, that are destitute of anything for themselves. They are broke and hungry, and they see nothing on the horizon. And what do? They come to Joseph, and they get life. You know, in this way, life through food, but life nonetheless. And so that is something that is, again, just kind of points us to, it's another picture pointing us to the Messiah. So now we come to verse 42, which is going to be the next step in getting the Israelite people to Egypt. And so this is the first part of it. Does somebody want to read the first 11 verses?
When Jacob learned there was grain for sale in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why do you look at one another?" And he said, "Behold, I have heard there is grain for sale in Egypt. Go down and buy grain for us there, that we may live and not die." So 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain in Egypt. But Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's brother, with his brothers, for he feared that harm might come to him. Thus the sons of Israel came to buy among the others who came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. Now Joseph was governor over the land. He was the one who sold to all the people of the land, and Joseph's brothers came and bowed themselves before him with their faces to the ground. Joseph saw his brothers and recognized them, but he treated them like strangers and spoke roughly to them. "Where do you come from?" he said. They said, "From the land of Canaan to buy food." And Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. And Joseph remembered the dreams that he had dreamed of them. And he said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see the nakedness of the land." They said to him, "No, my lord, your servants have come to buy food. We are all sons of one man. We are honest men. Your servants have never been spies."
Okay. So now Joseph is, he recognizes his brothers. His brothers don't recognize him. It's been 22 years since they've seen each other. He certainly remembers them. And interesting that they don't remember Joseph. And I think that is something that is, if we were to, as we take a look at this typology or this picture, that this is always pointing us to Christ, because all of Scripture does. How can we apply that to the Christ? Maybe I asked the question poorly, but Jesus, how often has Jesus spoken about knowing you? Isaiah 43, God knows you by name, you are his. Jesus says, "I know my sheep." He is the one that seeks you look at the parables, he's the one who goes out to seek for the lost son. He's the one that searches for the coins. All of this. He is the one who knows you. And in this case, we see just that. Joseph knows them. But they don't know him. We're reminded of some of Jesus' parables, aren't we? Where they knock on, when the oil is out, and they have to go running. The 10 virgins go run and get oil. Then they come and they knock on the door and they say, "Let us in, let us in." And what does Jesus say? I don't even know who you are. Yeah, I don't know you. So they don't or those times when Jesus as, I mean, look at the Israelite people. This would probably be even been a better example than that. The people were waiting for the Messiah. And the Messiah now, the Christ, is standing before them, and they don't recognize that he is the Messiah. They don't know him. And so what happens, what do we see is that, in fact, Romans talks about this, and that, and in fact, it's spoken of in Hebrews too. And the eternal salvation has been given to the Gentiles, and it's spoken of. It is because the Israelites did not know him that you are now the benefit of this. And so we see the same picture here, that the Israelite people, which are tied up in all of Joseph's brothers, all of Jacob's family, is really these are the 12 tribes. And of these 12 tribes, you have, this is all of Israel. Remember that. It's all of Israel. And so here we have all of Israel minus Benjamin, who's not there, right? All of Israel doesn't know who Joseph is. Joseph, who, from a metaphorical standard, is their Messiah. Joseph is the one with the food. And because, is Joseph causing them these challenges because they don't recognize him? Yeah, if they would have recognized him, might he have been a little more compassionate at the beginning, or not? We don't know. But they certainly don't recognize him. And then, of course, he accuses them as being spies, that they are here in a nefarious way. And they say, no, we're not. We are honest. We are honest men. Now, are they really honest men?
They've been lying about their maybe dead brother.
Would an honest man have thrown his brother in the pit, and then sold him, and then told dad that he was killed by a wild animal? You know what I mean? So, and again, picture this as we take a look at this as being a typology. Look at the Israelite people. And how the Israelite people believe that God would find favor in them. Why? Because they were the ones that honored the laws and the ceremonial laws. They were good people, that type of thing. So this is really a beautiful picture of the relationship between Messiah and the Old Testament Israel. You're certain. And of course, with those that call themselves the church in the New Testament that really aren't. Those that call themselves Christians, but are they really? And so this is what the picture is that we want to have in our mind. We don't want to just look at this as being a story long ago. There's a reason why all of this happens. And this is one of them, is to help us to say, oh, that's us too. Okay? So now let's go verse 12 through verse 17.
He said to them, "No, it is the nakedness of the land that you have come to see." And they said, We, your servants, are 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and one is no more. But Joseph said to them, "It is as I said to you, you are spies. By this shall you be tested. By the life of Pharaoh, you shall not go from this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you, and let them bring your brother, while you remain confined, that your words may be tested, whether there is truth in you. Or else, by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are spies. And he put them all together in custody for 3 days.
There's that 3-day thing again, right? And now we also have, okay, so you're spies. No, we're not spies. There's a dozen of us. Well, there's really, and then you can hear them saying, there's a dozen of us. Well, there's really 11 of us. One's gone, and one, I love it. One is no more. And Joseph is probably going, yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good line. Yeah, right. Are you going to be surprised down the road? And so,
Is that maybe why a reason that they didn't recognize him is because they thought he was dead anyway? So if they would have recognized him, they would have thought they were seeing a ghost.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that would be. Well, they didn't really think he was dead, though. Remember, they sold him.
Well, yeah, but
They
really
pretended
figured
he was
that,
dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, they figured they certainly didn't figure that he was going to be second in line to Pharaoh. That's true. And so they said, okay, you want to prove that you're not spies? You say there's 11 of you. I want to see the 11th one. You say you're honest, but it's easy to say those words. I need you to prove it. And so while you're going to get him, I'm not sending all of you back, because you're spies. So you're going to hang around here. You send somebody back to go get him. Okay? And so that's where they are. That's where they're at so far. So now we go to 18 to verse 25. See, Pam, that microphone's not so bad, is it? Look at this, twice now. She's getting pretty bold with that thing.
On the third day, Joseph said to them, "Do this, and you will live, for I fear God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers stay here in prison, while the rest of you go and take grain back for your starving households. But you must bring your youngest brother to me, so that your words may be verified and that you may not die." This they proceeded to do. They said to one another, "Surely we are being punished because of our brother. We saw how distressed he was when he pleaded with us for his life, but we would not listen. That's why this distress has come upon us." Reuben replied, "Didn't I tell you not to sin against the boy? But you wouldn't listen. Now we must give an accounting for his blood." They did not realize that Joseph could understand them, since he was using an interpreter. He turned away from them and began to weep, but then turned back and spoke to them again. He had Simeon taken from them and bound before their eyes. Joseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain, to put each man's silver back in his sack, and to give them provisions for their journey. After this was done for them, they loaded their grain on their donkeys and left.
Okay. All right. So, first thing we see, obviously they're in prison for the 3 days. And then they are released from the prison, and we see here great compassion. And the great compassion is, I want you get to go back. I want you to keep one here, okay? I want you to keep one here, but now you can go back, and not only go back, but go back and make sure that you take enough grain for everybody. So we see him, we see him making sure that the family has plenty of food. And then in the midst of, as he is doing that, we see now the brothers come to a contrition. They believe that this pain that has been set upon them is because of what they have done to their brother Joseph. And so there is guilt here. There is definitely guilt. And yet, while there is guilt, they don't know who to repent to yet. They just know that there is guilt. Imagine now sitting with guilt and having no place to go to release that guilt. There's a lot of people in our world that are just that have that guilt that is upon them, or a lack of will, or a lack of hope, or whatever the case may be, and because they have no place for it to go, it festers in them, and it causes either a great pain and suffering, or it might spill out in other ways, whether it be through a suicide or through something along those lines. Again, as we see this, there is when the conscience is burdened, that burden needs to come off, and that is what God has done for us, is that He has unburdened us of the sin that weighs upon us. And so we see here that they are burdened, and Joseph has this great compassion for them, to the point where he has to turn his head and weep for them, because he sees that they are sorrowful for what they have done to him, which is going to change how he is going to deal with them later. It is going to be the opportunity that he will share with them at as soon as the whole family is there, who he is, and that they are forgiven. And so that we're going to see here. And now Joseph sends them back with the food, but what else does Joseph do? He puts their payment back in their camels or donkeys or whatever they came in. Yeah. He doesn't take anything from them. And provisions to get back. And everything it is to get back. Again, as we take a look at what God has done for you, God has given them everything they need to live, and He has done it out of His own pocket, through His own suffering, His own blood, and we pay nothing for it, and He has given it to us. Okay, so that gets us to verse 25. So
So what does it mean? Because they did not realize that Joseph could understand them, since he was using an interpreter.
Okay, they were speaking probably some form of Hebrew, right? And Joseph is an Egyptian, so he would have been speaking Egyptian. And so even though Joseph knew the Hebrew language, Joseph was speaking to them, because he's second in line. He's speaking to them as an Egyptian, so he knew them, but he was using an interpreter, so they didn't know that he knew their language. And so again, this was all part of Joseph, we kind of see this transition also between Joseph as a revengeful, or could potentially be revengeful, and the Joseph of compassion. And so, yes, he knew what they were saying, but he wasn't going to tell them that he knew their language yet. He didn't reveal himself yet to them. Okay? So, again, as let's go back to our catechism days as we talk about God's law and His gospel. as we talk about, and one of the things we learn about the gospel is the gospel doesn't do us any good without the law. Unless we know that we are sinful and unworthy of God's forgiveness, why would we want or need God's forgiveness? We certainly don't need it. Why would we seek it if we don't think that we need that? The law of God is what prepares our hearts to hear the gospel of God. So without the law, the gospel is meaningless. And so in this case, the same thing is the law of God is still working in the hearts of all of those brothers. And you will see the redemption, you will see the forgiveness pour out in its fullest later. But even here at this point, before it's poured out in its fullest, they already have received a big portion of that compassion, in that he has provided them all they need for this daily life. Again, now we take a look at the first article's explanation of the creed, is that God has even for those who recognize who Jesus is or don't recognize who he is, God provides all that we need for this daily life. So he rains goodness upon believers and unbelievers, upon those who know him, upon those who do not know him, all of those kind of things. So we see really the creed that we have learned in our catechism. We see it all played out in these chapters. This is what it looks like. We learn the basic concepts and understandings. This is what it looks like. This is what it looked like for the Israelite people, and what it looks like for us. So, okay. So go in peace. Serve the Lord. We will pick it up there at verse 26 next week. We will have Bible class next week, and then we will be taking a week off because I will be out of town. And so we will take off the week of the 4th, the Sunday the 4th, and so we'll probably have to we'll have to make them a reminder again next week, so that those that want to tune in, that they are aware that we don't have one on the 4th. So, okay?